Blowback. It's the word Langley uses when yesterday's brilliant strategy comes back wearing a knife. Not tomorrow. Not in some academic paper. But now. While Washington argued about deserts in the Middle East. While Europe bled itself out in Ukraine. The real checkmate happened quietly. In our backyard. Venezuela. This wasn't an accident. It was a consequence. The United States believed sanctions were power. Isolation was control. Starvation was leverage. Instead, we triggered a chain reaction. And now, sitting beneath the jungles and plains of Venezuela, lies the largest proven oil reserve on Earth. Over 300 billion barrels. Future value? Nearly $50 trillion. That oil is no longer aligned with Washington. It is being folded, slowly, deliberately, into the hands of China, Russia, and the BRICS bloc. This is the price of arrogance. This is the payback. Chapter 1. The Sanction Trap. History. Sanctions are sold as a clean weapon. No blood, no body bags, just paperwork. In the early 2010s, Washington made a calculation. Crush Nicolas Maduro economically, and the regime collapses. Oil exports were throttled, assets frozen, banks threatened. The logic was simple. Venezuela's economy was oil. Choke the oil, and Caracas would beg. But history punishes simple men. Yes, the economy collapsed. Yes, the people suffered. But regimes under siege don't surrender. They adapt. Sanctions don't create democracy. They create desperation. And desperation looks for friends wherever it can find them. Washington assumed Venezuela had nowhere else to go. That was the mistake. Because geopolitics abhors a vacuum. Chapter 2. The vacuum filled, the pivot. When America slammed the door, someone else heard opportunity. China didn't lecture, China didn't moralize, China showed up with contracts. Beijing moved in with infrastructure deals, roads, ports, refineries, development loans. But these weren't gifts. They were chains, disguised as lifelines. China became Venezuela's largest creditor. Oil for loans, oil for construction, oil for survival. Every barrel promised to Beijing was a barrel removed from Washington's leverage. And while China bought influence, Russia brought teeth. Moscow sent weapons, intelligence advisors, cyber specialists. Sukhoi fighter jets appeared on Venezuelan runways. Not for war, for signaling. And then there were Wagner-linked contractors. Shadow men, deniable, effective. The message was unmistakable. Venezuela was no longer isolated. It was aligned. America locked the door. But China bought the house. Chapter 3. The economic weapon, the petrodollar. Empires don't die from invasion. They die when their currency does. For 70 years, the US dollar has ruled because oil was priced in dollars. The petrodollar system forced every nation to hold US currency. That demand funded America's deficits, its military, its lifestyle. Now that system is cracking. Quietly, Venezuela began selling oil outside the dollar. First through barter, then through intermediaries. Now, openly, through yuan-based transactions. Oil for yuan. It sounds technical, boring. It isn't. If a major oil holder abandons the dollar, others follow. If others follow, demand for dollars falls. If demand falls, inflation rises. And when inflation rises, empires panic. This is why BRICS matters. This is why a BRICS currency terrifies Washington. Because Venezuela isn't just selling oil, it's helping test a post-American financial order. Chapter 4. The missile threat, military. Now let's talk geography. Caracas is closer to Miami than Moscow is to Berlin. This isn't theory. This is math. Russian Tu-160 strategic bombers, nuclear capable, have landed in Venezuela before. Officially? Training visits. Symbolically. A warning shot. During the Cold War, we called this Cuba 2.0. Today we pretend not to see it. But Russia understands something Washington has forgotten. Proximity is power. A Russian-aligned Venezuela forces the US to look south again, to divide attention, to stretch resources. This isn't about invasion. It's about pressure. Missiles don't need to launch to be effective. They just need to exist. Here is the reality no one wants to say out loud. Venezuela is the receipt. A receipt for decades of intervention, neglect, and hubris. We sanctioned a country into the arms of our rivals. We turned the world's largest oil reserve into a strategic asset for BRICS. We weakened our currency by overusing it as a weapon. And now we are surprised by the consequences. The $50 trillion wasn't stolen. It was forfeited. Empires don't collapse in flames. They collapse in silence, while arguing about the wrong battlefield. Venezuela was never about Maduro. It was about control. And control has shifted. I'm George Vance. I've watched this pattern repeat across decades and continents. And I'll leave you with this. The most dangerous moment for an empire is when it still believes it's invincible. Subscribe to the George Vance Report. I read the intelligence reports, so you don't have to.